Welcome back to 10 of the best. Here's the bit where I'm meant to do an extended preamble about the list in order to boost view time. Never mind that, here are 10 of the best games from the 2000s you can't purchase digitally for PC. Let's go! Number 10. All those games that required a central server. Remember that mid-tier multiplayer title that had delusions of grandeur and thought it could dethrone World of Warcraft? Or maybe it was one that required a pesky always online connection and a sign-in every time you wanted to play. Well, their servers are dead, and unless the community jury-rigged a solution, then so is the game, whether it be an MMO or one of those early games as a service. City of Heroes, The Matrix Online, Warhammer, Star Wars Galaxies, Tabula Rasa. Some might be playable on community servers, but there's a huge chunk of games that players loved that have become impossible to relive the memories of. Those imaginative worlds are now lost forever, and that's the problem with trusting anything to external servers. Sure, it's working now, but all it takes is one decision from up top, and that functionality will evaporate. Number 9. Need for Speed Underground. Flashback to the mid-2000s. I'm sat on a sofa with company, and my brother's Xbox is in front of me. On a whim I decide, hey, let's stick the first random game in that we find. So I did, and it turned out to be Need for Speed Underground. And to my surprise, it was good. The premise from EA is simple. Hey, do you want to be Vin Diesel from those new Fast and Furious movies? Okay then. You race around cityscapes at night in a custom-built import car taking on illegal street racers and trying not to get smacked by unwitting traffic that gets in your way. Win races, earn cash, buy better parts and cars, and become the king of racing. Not exactly a unique plot at this point, but Underground represents a series of early to mid-2000s sports titles that have so many licenses attached to them, from car makers to music companies and so forth, that they'll never see the light of day again. Then again, you'll have some people claiming that the Need for Speed series ended as soon as EA Canada stopped making it. A very distinctive position to take. Number 8. Zoo Tycoon. Another game that fell into my lap courtesy of a relationship. A certain someone insisted to me that Zoo Tycoon was one of the greatest strategy games ever made. So I went to buy it as a gift, and lo and behold, I couldn't get a copy on any of my favourite digital storefronts. This resulted in waiting for their original CDs to be shipped over. I hovered over their shoulder as they showed me the features of this zoo park simulator, caring for all the animals and the business and their needs, and an echo of both Sid Meier and Chris Sawyer leapt out at me from the screen. It's no coincidence that this game from Blue Fang Studios bears the Tycoon name. The team behind it already had industry plaudits, having worked on racing games for Papyrus and strategy titles like Lords of Magic and Riders of Rohan. I was wrong to dismiss it as nostalgia-tinted recollection, and while there may have been spiritual successors since, nobody has done the whole zoo thing quite as effectively as this one. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some dinosaurs to attend to. Did I mention that you can look after dinosaurs? Number 7. Aliens vs Predator 2. The third best Alien game, the pants-wettingly terrifying Alien vs Predator from 1999, is available on Steam. I played it for an April Fool's joke and regretted the heart palpitations it gave me. But why play that when you can stealth around in Alien Isolation and cause yourself a full-on heart attack? Well, there was another great Alien game that can't be bought online, and it was developed by Monolith, whose FPS pedigree was substantial at the time. They used the Liftech engine, which allowed for a more fully realised world than the previous entry in the series, as 3D graphics were improving exponentially during this period. Just like in earlier games, you have 3 separate campaigns to battle through as a squishy human, a lone predator, or an alien hybrid. They all have their own abilities and control differently, allowing for greater variation of play than standard single protagonist FPS games. Unlike the other stories, these ones intersect and affect each other, allowing for a larger narrative to unfold. You know, kinda like watching one of the 6 movies it had at the time to pull lore from, making it a must-play for fans of both franchises. Thankfully, there's no other Monolith games missing from Digital Claw. Get Medieval, Grunts, Sanity, Contract Jack, The Matrix Online, Gotham City Imposters. Number 6. No One Lives Forever. This should probably be number 1 on the list, but I've stuck it here for the sake of a punchline because it's also by Monolith. The Operative, more commonly known as No One Lives Forever, was a first-person shooter released in the year 2000, and was regularly compared favourably to Half-Life. That's a pretty good thing. A brilliant spy-based series set in the 60s with more than its fair share of Bond influence, and a plot that will leave you both shaken and stirred. You're the Fox, Kate Archer, the female equivalent of 007 working for Unity, a covert organisation that bestows you with missions and any number of colourful gadgets to complete your tasks. But you can't just go in all guns blazing, otherwise you'd be a pretty poor spy. Thankfully, the stealth elements are integrated seamlessly into the story-based missions. Extra notes, conversation trees, and a colourful aesthetic combined with lots of community love make this a timeless masterpiece that floats near the top of the best of 2000 lists all over the internet. It's probably the most requested shooter for PC that's still unavailable, but sadly the game has been bogged down in a legal quagmire, and all attempts to pull it out have failed. Number 5. Prey. No, not the entertaining reimagining of the franchise as an immersive sim by Arcane, it's our 3rd FPS in a row! This one was developed on id Tech 4 by Human Head Studios, and required a number of heavy modifications in order to fit the spectacular vision of its creators. You're a Cherokee who gets abducted by aliens in the Sphere, along with your girlfriend and grandfather for some reason, in one of the most spectacular openings of an FPS ever. Because of your heritage, you're able to resurrect yourself, and an innovative system of portals is used in this narrative-heavy adventure about defeating aliens. Where have I heard this before? Oh, that's right. It's Portal meets Half-Life before Portal existed. But instead of Cave Johnson, you've got Art Bell. It took 11 years to develop, and has gravity-defying antics and a huge heap of mysticism as you take on and defeat these aliens, while getting to the core of what it is they're up to with this whole abduction nonsense. Fortunately, the Native American mysticism is a cut above Commander Chakotay from Voyager, which is a relief. It's exactly the sort of game that should go down as a cult classic, and it has, but in this case it's because the game used to be available digitally but then got taken down. Prey's a great game and deserves a better fate. Number 4. Black and White. Ever wanted to be a giant bipedal cow stomping around a 3D island being worshipped like the god that you are? Back in 2001, that was something I didn't know I needed. Then I played Lionhead's Black and White. Black and White is a god simulator from Peter Molyneux of Bullfrog fame, and you have an island full of worshippers that you nurture or destroy. It's all about good and evil, and gaining followers and influence, but you're not alone. There are other gods who serve as allies in opposition to your plans. Your deity is represented by an on-screen hand that interacts with the world in order to issue commands. You draw on the screen to cast things, and you also have to nurture your animal godhead in a sim-like environment, praising them or punishing them depending on their actions. The AI responds to this, and if you're not careful, the temperamental beast will start to misbehave. It's a culmination of classic titles like Populous and Dungeon Keeper, but translated into a more modern environment, and the streamlining of various elements makes for a more intuitive game overall. While there are a clutch of Lionhead games available online, the vast bulk of their catalogue of classic games is nowhere to be seen, because it was published by multiple companies or just never released for the PC at all. That needs to change, if only so I have a convenient place to download Black and White and the movies. Number 3. Freelancer. Chris Roberts made Wing Commander, one of the most important and influential space series of all time. He also formed Digital Anvil and came up with the idea for Starlancer, a massively underrated space shooter that seemed like the logical conclusion to his previous Wing Commander efforts. Unfortunately, the space combat genre had died a death the year before, and it sold poorly. Roberts was also working on an even grander space game set 800 years into the future of Starlancer. It took the mercantile and galactic elements of Elite and placed them in a third-person mouse-controlled environment, allowing you to freely roam in space and take on missions outside of a corralled single-player mode. You're a mercenary called Edison Trent, who takes on a series of jobs that inevitably get him wrapped up in a galactic conspiracy. The universe slowly unlocks as you progress in rank and obtain better equipment and standing with various factions. Or you can just fly off and do random cargo piloting duties or combat quests. Typical of Roberts, it's all very ambitious while falling just short due to budgetary constraints. It was predicted to change the face of the gaming industry, but unfortunately the likes of EverQuest and Call of Duty had reared their heads during the long development time. And as evidenced by Starlancer, space combat was no longer in vogue. It's an absolute mystery why this inventive space shooter has been unavailable for years now. Someone at Microsoft needs to get that ball rolling, as they're missing out on free money by not republishing or remastering Freelancer. Number 2. The Battle for Middle-earth. EA lost the license to The Lord of the Rings in 2008 and to Harry Potter in 2011, and with it 2 huge series of games vanished without a trace, because EA's Origin system only appeared in 2011. Now, EA could try to renegotiate a publication license agreement in order to get these games back up on Origin, or even Steam, but either someone is asking for too much money, or there's some other legal issue getting in the way. As you can imagine, with the 2 most well-known titles in fantasy, demand for these games to return is huge, and for me nowhere is this more keenly felt than the absence of Battle for Middle-earth. Developed by the people who did the latter-day Command & Conquer games, and designed by the people who would go on to make the likes of Supreme Commander, Age of Empires 4, Empire at War, and StarCraft 2, Battle for Middle-earth and its sequel were much more than simple movie tie-ins. They were some of the greatest real-time strategy games ever made. From the absurdly high production values, original cast voice acting, good and evil campaigns that differed significantly from both the movies and each other, and a territorial overworld lovingly crafted with due diligence, you felt like you were in Middle-earth. And the pièce de la résistance, Hard Shore's score, technically makes this the best in-game soundtrack ever. Fight as the Fellowship, protect Gondor, ride with Rohan, murder with Mordor, or eradicate with Isengard. There's everything you'd expect from a great RTS. The strongest overall story in literary history, great factions with unique playstyles, a whole roster of units with rock, paper, scissors, strengths and weaknesses, and multiple base points to hold on the map as you progress your campaign. An essential set of games for fans of the book, the movies, or the genre. Yeah, I said games. The second one is good too. Speaking of good sequels, number 1, The Sims 2. Wait, really? Yeah, that was my reaction too when I discovered that you can't legally purchase The Sims 2 online anymore. For some inexplicable reason, EA took it off their digital storefronts. For those somehow unaware, The Sims series by Will Wright is the best-selling digital dollhouse game where you play the life of a family, or multiple families, or an entire neighbourhood if you want. The first Sims title took the world by storm, and became one of the best-selling games of all time. And The Sims 2 is to The Sims what SimCity 2000 is to SimCity. That was not an easy sentence to say. It improves on it in every conceivable way, and for my money is the best game in the series, before the resource-heavy open-world Sims 3 or the cash-grab Sims 4. Start a family, build a home, live vicariously through trials and tribulations of your little Sim people as they go through their lives, and watch them as they grow old and die. or defy the aging process entirely by becoming a retired astronaut who carves gnomes for extra currency and downs the elixir of life repeatedly to remain immortal while partying with his great-great-great-great-grandson. That's what my sim did. I had problems letting go. Now considered more of a game for young women and children than hardcore gamers, and distinctly out of fashion with that crowd, back in the day The Sims was everywhere and had a universal appeal. Since 2018, EA have been funneling people towards buying The Sims 4 instead, which costs more, offers less content in the base game, but they only made that decision 4 years after release. Clearly they looked at the figures and didn't want to compete with their former selves, so they simply removed it from the market, leaving former players to download sketchy versions of the Ultimate Collection from websites instead. Thanks, EA. Did you like that? 10 of the Best is a series, you know. Look, there's a playlist over there, and hundreds of other videos on my channel. Feel free to take a look, and if you like what you see, you can always subscribe. Until next time.